Good out to you, Saints fans. Coming off a close one, defensive slobber knocker. I put it in the title because that's honestly how I feel. Tight defensive one, and New Orleans loses, fails, whatever. Stats. You know what? Look, I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I don't leave this game incredibly negative. There are definitely things that I note, and we're gonna talk about that. But I'm gonna be real. You lost a defensive playoff level game, 15-12, and that's with a lot of things going wrong. And look. Everybody wants to go undefeated, 20-0, but I said it last week. You're not going to do that in the NFL. You're going to lose games. The question is, how do you lose games? This team showed a lot and then failed short in the end. Hopefully the things that we will note as them struggling with, we can talk about them, how they can make those things better. But New Orleans didn't get destroyed. And like how I view this game, and again, we're coming off a loss right now, so if you're in your emotions, I'm not going to be mad at you. If you want to say the Saints are losing games forever and they're just the same old Saints, that's fine. But I don't think losing this way diminishes how dominant you were in the first 2 weeks, in that the first 2 weeks weren't a mirage. Like you weren't secretly terrible and somehow managed to have two great games. You simply had a tough playoff level game today, and the Eagles came to play and the Eagles held out, right? And Dallas Goedert ate your lunch, and Saquon Barkley you contained for a whole half, and then you let him go crazy. How can New Orleans improve? We're going to do what we normally do for the recaps. We're going to go quarter by quarter, tell y'all what happened, then we'll get y'all's opinion, so make sure you bring them fresh, bring them hot. Quarter number one, losing Eric McCoy really impacted this game. Now, I will be very clear, I don't use this as a scapegoat for Klint Kubiak, who I don't feel like called the best game afterwards. Don't feel like the offense made the best adjustments. But Eric McCoy going down in the very first drive significantly impacted this team for multiple quarters. Now, we can blame coaching for that. Specifically, I think Klint Kubiak is the guy that's going to take blame for that, but that was a big deal. AK was not finding early rushing lanes. McCoy going down was a big reason. Derek Carr was facing early pressure. Again, losing McCoy was a big reason. You had miscommunications on the offensive line. They tried to run a trap block where they ended up with both guards running into each other. It was a calamity of errors for a team that we've talked about being so fundamentally sound through the first 2 weeks. Eagles using rub routes and targeting veterans of the Nolan D. That was part of the first quarter theme. Well, you're going to see that again in quarter four. Granderson with great reads penetration. I feel like Granderson is one of the few people who had a fantastic game all day long. Shout out to Granderson. And I personally believe that there was a pass in the first half that Shaheed caught that they could have challenged that was ruled incomplete. I feel like New Orleans should have challenged that play. They did not. Dennis Allen actually did not do a challenge at all today, but I felt like Shaheed caught that. And you know what? We'll review it when we go through the film study. Moving over to quarter two, Alvin Kamara still not getting much. He finishes the first half 12 carries for 33 yards. That's less than 3 yards per carry average. Derek Carr was 7 of 13 in the first half for 51 yards and no tutties. And then you had Chris Olave, who was the only player doing kind of well in the first half with 36 yards. Now, defensively, I felt like the team played very well. I mean, 3 quarters, they gave up 3 points, and then you end up giving a little bit more here, 12 points in the second half of things, the fourth quarter of things, really. But still like the defense played pretty well, with the exception of some big glaring mistakes. And the thing is, we've talked about Dennis Allen's defenses having issues with that before. Running rub routes and mesh concepts, things like that over the middle of the field have caused New Orleans to have problems in the past. We'll talk about that more towards the end. But the big one for me in the second quarter was losing time of possession. And New Orleans kind of never really got back to that, even though statistically they were doing okay in things like third down conversion. Right, moving on to the third quarter stats, you saw the Saints get a little bit better in terms of the run game. Not great. Still kind of, the same thing that we saw. You didn't see either offense take up to the fourth, but Brian Brzee, I felt, had a really solid game as a pass rusher. Still not great in terms of run defense. Need to see him get better with that. That's why you're hoping for guys like Colin Saunders to come back. That's why you're getting guys like Ford on the field more, Nate Shepard, etc. But did I see that from both Brzee and from Carl Grant, who again had a fantastic day. Other third corner notes for me, clear that Kubiak was missing Taysom Hill. Short yardage situations didn't really go to plan. And I want to also be very clear. Look, I know the Eagles have struggled the past couple games and at the end of last season, but the Eagles are a quality team. And I want to point that out. Eagles are the same way that I view Dallas. And I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm simply saying that I don't believe New Orleans struggled against a bad team. Philly is a team that over the past 2 seasons has won 25, now 26 games. Actually, this is their 27th win. Philly was no slouch, right? Philly has won their division. They've gone and lost the Super Bowl. They've gone to the playoffs 3 straight years. So you're playing a playoff caliber team, and you played them very, very close. Last thing I'll say about the third quarter before we move on to the wrap up here. Would love to see the Saints run more Hank, smash concepts, etc., more short passing, and we did finally see that in the fourth, but I'm going to, again, put some of my onus and some of my gripe on Clint Kubiak. He's got to be able to adjust in these games, right? He's got to be able to adjust and do better, right? You know, we'll hit the fourth quarter now. Let's go ahead and jump into it. Alvin Kamara did better in the fourth, as did the offense as a whole. Honestly, Derek Carr did much better, except for the final play of the game. And look, Derek Carr is what he is. And I've said this for a long time. Derek Carr's not trash. Derek Carr's not MVP Hall of Fame level great. He's not Drew Brees. So to put him on that standard is unfair. At the same time, you've got to give him the opportunity to be successful, right? Losing McCoy was huge in the first, because what is the reason that Derek Carr throws that pick at the very end of the game? Interior pressure. Carter absolutely doing amazing in the very beginning and throughout the game. John Carter, who was somebody that we talked about. Well, would you rather have Carter or Brian Brzee? I mean, honestly, you'd like to have both of them. Any team would love to have either one of them, but you've got to provide Derek Carr the ability to be elite. He is not going to naturally do that. I don't trust him in that. You can call me a Carr hater. I'm going to give Carr praise when he does things well, but I'm also going to say, hey, look, you cannot put your quarterback in this situation and expect him to be Tom Brady. I don't think that's a negative thing to say. Don't expect Derek Carr to be Tom Brady. You've got to defend his pocket. You've got to give him, good spots. And again, I leave this saying you lost by 3 when nothing was going right. Running game never really got off and going. Offensive line injured. You're missing Taysom Hill. And none of those are meant to be excuses. You lost fair and square to Philly, but context still matters how you lost. I love the pass to Chris Olave in the end zone, by the way, by Derek Carr. So there was good to be had, but why did it take to the fourth quarter to finally get that going? I actually want to bring up the possessions here. Punt, interception, fumble, downs. That is how our defense started Philly off. And how did they respond? Well, New Orleans responded with field goal, punt, end half. Those are not appropriate responses, right? Those are not appropriate responses. Now, the good news is, if you're a Saints fan, Tampa lost today at home to Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos. Now, Tampa will be in first place in the division because they lost to a out-of-conference foe. We lost to an in-conference foe. Losing to Philly is a little bit bigger of a deal than losing to Denver, but you're not moving anywhere in terms of the NFC South, and Falcons hate week starts now. I also want to give another shout out to the defensive side of things, because Carl Granderson and Brian Brzee came through. You ended up 4 sacks a day, but good QB hits. Paul Sadibo, I felt like, had a really, really good day today, with the exception of one pass. Honey Badger getting picked on a little bit by Dallas Goedert, and that happens, right? Woof. Here we are. Now we're going to get into your thoughts, your comments. Like I said, I'm not leaving this incredibly negative, but I do leave this going, this team's got to do better offensively. You've got to be able to adjust, and I give credit Philly for making those adjustments, right? I think that Moore with Philly did a great job. Sirianni did a great job adjusting in the second half to put them in position to succeed, and you still saw a defense that did not get worked, right? You gave up 15 points with a lot of that coming at the very end of the game. Defense, I still felt, was stout enough. You held them in the fourth down conversions, 1 for 3, third down, 6 for 14. You just got to clean up those little things. Have got to see the offense, though, be able to adjust and be consistent. Dennis Allen's team came to play today. Clint Kubiak, he had the same thing. As much as we're going to praise Clint Kubiak, we got to be harsh on him when he does not provide. Davis said the overall offense was stagnant as heck, no consistency, no consistent running attack, no consistent passing attack, and not taking advantage of the Eagles' mistakes and turnovers. What's wild is I'm harping on the defense while having not mentioned the fact that the Eagles missed a field goal, that JT Gray had an absolutely amazing pump block that resulted in nothing, no points at all. These are things that the offense has to capitalize on, not to mention the Honey Badger turnover, the strip sack by Carl Granderson. Defense, special teams put the offense in positions to score. Like, one of the reasons that New Orleans only has 219 yards of offense is a lot of their starting positions were in great spots. Look at where they started at their 47 after the fumble, right? After the interception, started at the 19, but still, you get the momentum of the interception. Start at the 47. Oh, but we then start at the New Orleans 40 after downs. Blocked it. We started on the Philly 27 and got nothing. Missed field goal attempt, started on the 50 after the missed field goal. You've got to score. Now, they did score on that one, right? You managed to score at that very last one, but you were given some great field position. Started at the 47, you only got 13 yards and 6 plays, had to punt. right? Started at your own 40, only got 6 plays, 18 yards, had to punt. Started at your own 36, which is still quality field position, 3 and out. These are things that have to be put on Clay Kubiak as a play caller, and we are going to give you praise when you go against Dallas, in Dallas, and you whoop their behinds. And that deserves praise. We're also going to call it out when it deserves to be called out today. Close loss. Fish, 3-16. Why the heck are we playing man coverage? We are not a championship play calling team. Seems like after Carr almost threw the pick 6, they didn't let him throw. Run, and nothing. Well, a lot of that was dictated, again, going against 2 things in your comment. Number 1, you play man coverage when you have very good players. And I'll be honest, New Orleans arguably has the best DB room in the NFL. Now, did they get taken advantage of today by Dallas Goedert in some of those plays? Yes. Doesn't change the fact that Paulson Adebo, Marshall Lattimore, Kool-Aid McKinstry, Lante Taylor, Honey Badger, Harris, Howden, those are dogs in the DB room. All right, we can talk all the trash we want, but New Orleans just lost 15-12, and it took 38 passing attempts to get 311 yards. You picked him off. You never allowed a TD throw to get thrown. I'm not upset with that. I'm upset with the mesh concept getting to this defense. I want to see Dennis Allen adjust that. But I'm going to be honest. I'm not harping on a man coverage concept call. I'm more harping on the fact that the offense is starting the ball at, the 47-yard line and punting. Again, I'm not saying that the defense is without problems, right? And if you've studied Dennis Allen's defense, if you've been on the podcast and come to our film studies, we've talked about Dennis Allen's defense can have struggles at times with things like mesh concepts over the middle of the field, rub routes, triangle reads. It's all about playing fundamentally well. And today you didn't have that. Will Harris running directly into Marshawn Lattimore, that's a problem you have to clean up. But I also can't leave the fact, and I understand it's post-game, you're fresh off a loss, you're feeling a type of way, but you lost 15-12 to a playoff caliber team who would be shocking if they don't win their division. Very possible you see them again. Hopefully you do. Hopefully New Orleans has some success. Remember, you got to go take on the Falcons. Don't sleep on them. Falcons hate week starts now. But let's get into the comments y'all are making. Appreciate y'all. Defense, special teams, insane. Sirianni's terrible decision-making did their best to keep us in the game. Offense couldn't do the bare minimum despite golden opportunities provided by the defense. Shades of 2023. Again, agreed. But I want to reiterate the point I made at the beginning of this show. This doesn't negate the 2 great games you have. But I also told y'all, do not expect this to just persist, right? You're not going to have the unstoppable offense every game. You've got to find ways to win and contribute and dominate without that. And I also don't want to use Eric McCoy's injury as a reason. Like that obviously affected this team. You got to find a way to win. You got to find a way to capitalize. And as you said, opportunities present themselves with the defense, with the special teams. Big one for me, starting on your own 40. Anytime you start at your 35 and above, that's only 65 yards you've got to grind, and it's only 40-ish yards to your pretty decent field goal range. Every time you should have scored. So that's second drive of the game, that should have been a score, was a punt. Fourth drive of the game, should have been a score, was a punt. Sixth drive of the game, should have been a score, was a punt. Fifth drive of the game, or was seventh drive of the game, should have been a score, was a turnover on downs, right? The only one where you actually succeeded in the metric that I'm giving you is the missed field goal, start at the 50, and you still had a Michael or Trevor Penning mismatch of the blind side where he gets called for blocking out of bounds, excessive blocking. And I'm not saying I disagree with the call. I'm just saying there was a lot of offensive shooting themselves in the foot. Clay Kubiak's got to fix those things, right? It'll be very interesting to see how this tape plays out. David says, we owe Atlanta a beatdown, the highest order, for sending that angry Eagles team up on here. And of course, they're the Dirty Birds. Absolutely agree. Now, I want to point out real quick. We can talk all day about the Saints losing, but context is huge. Let's not pretend like the Eagles did not come out here trying to win this game. Like, I almost feel like we are throwing unnecessary shade at Sirianni, who I'm not super confident in him as a head coach or anything, but I mean, him and Moore definitely came in trying to win this game. That's why you saw them doing things like focusing so hard on getting Dallas Goedert the ball when he was matched up with Honey Badger and Harris. When they got that safety matchup, they wanted to take advantage of it. They were calling plays to make that happen, right? It's not like Philly came in here and was just giving it away. New Orleans played really hard on defense and special teams, and the offense just didn't match the energy, which is why they didn't score. And you have Derek Carr with a pedestrian game. When you throw 56%, 142 yards 1 TD, 1 interception. That's pretty pedestrian, right? They've got to find a way to overcome these things. And I agree with Wonod. The Eagles are no bums. They were pissed. Now, had this game happened against the Carolina Panthers, I would have been like, damn, Saints should feel some type of way. And they still should feel some type of way. But this should not make you leave this going, well, I no longer believe in this team, right? Like, I don't see 2023 defense here. I see this team had a hard match. They could have won, should have won. See where it goes from here. Glad says everyone failed, both offense and defense at the end. Even at the Saquon rung, they still had a chance to stop them, and we finally marched down the field. There's your chance offense. Look, big reason that I'm always harping on some of these old school stats, time of possession being one of them. Eagles won time of possession. Time of possession by itself does not say you're a good or bad team, but you know what it does do? It definitely wears out your defense when they're on the field a lot. 67 offensive plays is how many that the Philadelphia Eagles ran. Optimally, your defense is only facing 40 to 50 plays. Optimally. Maybe 55. Almost 70 is a lot asking your defense to be on the field and do their job. That is a lot to do. You've got to be better. You have to eat up more of a clock. You have to take away those opportunities. And you've had a team that's done that so far this year. Now you got to do it against Atlanta, with Atlanta hosting Kansas City today. We'll see how that goes. Chambliss says Clint Kubiak and his inexperience showed up today. Tough loss. Getting AK to the perimeter should have been more utilized after McCoy went down and no Taysom. I agree. Now, we'll have to tell y'all, and we can talk about this week in film study, Philly came out with a defense ready for New Orleans. What I mean by that is, if you look at how they did their front, a lot of 4-3 over, had Zach Bond down the line, basically running similar looks to 5 DL down low, almost like it's an old 46 defense, to try to curtail that edge, right? The Eagles came prepared for that. So as an offense, you have to adjust. And during the game, I was saying, I want to see the offense run more Hank passing concept, smash passing concept, mesh themselves to get the short passing game into play. And if you remember in one of the film studies, and I say all this to still say I'm a positive guy with this team, but if you remember in one of the film studies this week, did I not say, I'm curious to see how Clint Kubiak adjusts from all these 2-route concepts? A lot of the things that New Orleans has been doing in their successful first 2 games, they do a lot of play action, a lot of boot action, but they would keep a lot of guys in the block and only run 2 receivers downfield. Well, if those 2 get smothered and covered, you've got nothing you can do. You have to add variance to your passing concepts, and I want to see what did that look like when we get to the all-22 review here, but just did not feel, at least watching it live, that the adjustments were being made that needed to be made. Doesn't feel that way. Eric says, we'll be fine. We thought we would be 1-2 if anything. Philly fault. Our offense couldn't get it done when it mattered, but this defense is a championship-level defense. Is a groin injury long-term? Groin injuries can, depending on the severity or the grade, be long-term and annoying. We'll see if that ends up being the case. But I do agree with your main point. Coming into this season, nobody here, myself included, expected them to score 91 points through 2 games, and I don't really know many people who circled this game on their calendar and said the Saints were going to win. Philly is a tough opponent, right? Don't let the Atlanta Falcons close from the end fool you. Just like don't let the Saints dominating both the Cowboys and the Panthers make you think that they're going to score 40 points every game. These games happen. It's how you respond to those games and how do you adjust. Definitely got to see Clint Kubiak adjust. Rudy says losing 2 stars on the O-line really hurt the Saints on the day, and the Eagles continually brought pressure while the Saints tried to get the job done with just their front 4. While we'll add in that Ruiz did come back into today's game, but losing Eric McCoy was absolutely huge. And then obviously you had to force a new left guard in there with Udo, and you saw issues with Udo. I mean, he was just not prepared in terms of not only who he was facing snap-wise, but actual on-field prep. He just did not seem like he knew some of the plays. That's going to be a problem. Israel appropriately says, Eagles also had injuries and how many turnovers, yet they stayed in and got the win. Exactly. Good teams find a way to win, right? Good teams find a way to win. And I felt like New Orleans offense did a great job at the very end to try to make that happen. Then they got put in an impossible situation where you got to grind, 70 yards in 58 seconds to score. Naturally, a lot of those guys are going to push. Derek Carr makes a horrible decision, throws an interception, game over. But that's all happened because the defense made one mistake. Mesh concept, Dallas Goedert has a basically 70-yard reception. 61. You lose the game. You lose the game. And then you lost the game by 3 points, 15-12, right? Ronnie says Shaheed was nowhere to be found today and his blocking was suspect. Could have schemed something to get the ball in his hands. Shaheed was targeted 5 times today. And I would argue a lot of those passes were good decisions, but either good coverage or pressure forced a bad throw. 2 of Shaheed's incompletions were bad, I wouldn't say bad throws, but pressured throws. So they were where they needed to be, but they weren't perfect, and they got broken up, right? So that's huge. Rashid Shaheed got targeted only second to Olave, but didn't reel in a single catch. I still argue, though, that Rashid Shaheed should have gotten that catch in the first quarter. I believe that Dennis Allen should have gone for it and recalled it, but he didn't. Blair says, one thing I didn't love was Philly had 2 backups on the right side of the line and kind of dominated the entire second half. I will say that there was not as much defensive line production that I would have hoped. Obviously, when you get 4 sacks, it looks like it's pretty good. And I feel like Carl Granderson had a good game. But at what point, I hate to be the guy, but at what point are the Saints hurting themselves by rotating so much? Here's my hot take of the day. I love Cameron Jordan. Have for a long time. I don't agree that him and Peyton Turner should be rotating in on passing downs. I'm sorry. Should be Chase Young, Carl Granderson 100% of the time. I know the idea is to keep your defensive line fresh. You do not see the same defensive line with Turner, with Foskey, with Jordan. It's just not there. Do I think that Cameron Jordan is still a high-end run defender? Absolutely. But similar to how you'll have one tech defensive lineman will only stay on the field basically first down. Guys like, Poona Ford, if you just want to name somebody in the league. I think Cameron Jordan's made that point. And that isn't to say that Cameron Jordan isn't somewhat effective in some pass plays. He obviously reads the field very well. But what New Orleans severely lacked today was pressure, consistently. And I feel like the rotation is doing them more harm than good, right? Chase Young still has to clean up a little things. He over pursues a little bit when he runs the arc, but he's consistent in getting you pressure. Carl Granderson is consistent getting you pressure. Brian Brzee is consistent in pass rush, still a long way to go as a run defender. I think Cameron Jordan is it's time to stop rotating. It's time to rely on your guys to be your guys. And remember, Carl Granderson did just get a contract extension last year, right? Chase Young's fighting for one. Let them earn it. I love Cam Jordan. I still think that he should play on this team. I still think he has a role in this team. But it's reached a point where I need to see his snap count being around 30% of the snaps. And maybe that's my hot take of the day. That's my hot take of the day. Derek says we played average at best, not good. Our third down defense alone shows we didn't play well. I don't think the third down defense was that bad. I really don't. I mean, you went 6 for 14. If you add in the fourth downs, because Philly has done this for years, you went 7 for 17. Those are solid numbers. Now, are those amazing numbers? No. Those aren't bad numbers. 7 for 17 is fine. The issue is the big plays, which you gave up a lot of big plays. 65-yard run with Saquon Barkley, 61-yard reception by Dallas Goedert. He actually had 3 receptions of 30 or more yards. The big plays are what killed you, right? I honestly don't have an issue with the third down, fourth down performance. I have an issue with how they adjusted or lacked to adjust to big plays. That is more of the issue. You'll take 7 for 17 on third and fourth downs every game. Most people will. You'll take those. What you will not take is missed opportunities on interceptions, missed opportunities on forced fumbles, missed opportunities on blocked kicks. You cannot let those happen. You cannot let those slide. Bazile says, always look at the bright side, not trying to be that guy, but didn't that last Goedert play give Minnesota miracle vibes? Not to me. If any play gave that vibe, it was the CeeDee Lamb touchdown against Dallas. I just feel like this team has to communicate better, and I feel that's sucky, and it's happened before. But situational awareness, spatial awareness, got to make it work. But that was obviously the critical play, and we can say the defense lost it on that play, but we can also say the offense lost it for 3 quarters by not scoring, right? You started with a field goal, then you didn't score to the fourth. Halfway through the fourth, you got a Blake Groupie field goal, right? Was that play a dagger? Absolutely. But end of the day, you had 12 first downs as an offense. 12 as an offense. That's it. 12. It's not going to cut it. It's not going to cut it. Not going to cut it at all. All right. Today was DA's birthday. Brutal way to start his birthday week. Hey, best way to start your birthday week is Falcons hate week. And hope the Falcons lose today against Kansas City and then beat the Falcons in New Orleans. If you're going to win, you better win at home. That's all I'm going to say. You got to beat the Falcons, but you got to beat them at home. New Orleans is 2-1, still top of the division. Have one conference loss now. Tampa lost today as well. And then if you look at the schedule for New Orleans, and I said this, I got asked a week ago on Twitter, like, what was my thing with New Orleans if we go to our first 6 games? I said 4-2. If we can manage to go 4-2 in the first 6 games, that would have been a tremendous win. Yeah, I'm sorry. This one is in Atlanta. Didn't mean to hit that button. That one is in Atlanta. Second game is in New Orleans. But if you could go 4-2 through the first 6, that was like me being beyond excited. Beat Atlanta, beat one of the other teams. Win 2 of your next 3. I believe this team can do that. We'll see how it plays out. Eric says defense had 3 or 4 turnovers, 2 turnovers, and a blocked punt. Offense lost this game, but it's all good. They show they can make plays unlike last year. Got to make it happen, right? You lose tough ones, but I'll say this, and this is the biggest difference right now. So if you feel like, oh, this is 2023, let me remind you of what 2023 was, chat. Let me remind you what last year was. When you played playoff teams, you got beat. You played playoff teams, you got beat, right? That was the New Orleans Saints of last year. You played playoff teams, you got beat. This was one at the very end, went down to the wire, and you lost a close one. New Orleans found ways to lose against playoff teams last year, right? They've already beat a playoff caliber team this year, and they played another close one. This isn't last year. Hopefully, they straighten the boat. We'll see. Matthew says, I'm canceling the 24-hour rule and starting Falcons hate week early. I'm not going to argue with you. I already made the hashtag up. I already put the hashtag up. So, losing to Green Bay last season essentially took us out of the playoffs. I hope this is not that game. Maybe, maybe not. But I will say this. I don't believe any game in the first half of your season takes you out the playoffs unless you've gone 0-8 or 2-6. That doesn't happen. Today was a dogfight against playoff caliber teams who are both still trying to get everything together. And remember, I tried to harp on this for y'all through the first 2 weeks of film study. They still don't have this together. Remember when I said the goal is in a dominating win, you have to find the flaws, and in a bad game, you have to find the good? This is why. Games are not won and lost off singular plays. Seasons are not won and lost off singular games. Got to bounce back against Atlanta. And I feel like New Orleans matches up well against Atlanta. So, the only thing I hate about this loss is seeing the Eagles fans on Bourbon Street. It doesn't bother me at all. Look, if they want to go to Nolans and they want to go into French Quarter and they want to go to Bourbon Street, thank you for your tourist money. Locals aren't there anyway. Who are they hootatting at? They're hootatting at other tourists. Congrats. Like, yeah, you beat the Saints. Thank you for your tourism dollars. Please give as many as you can. I want y'all to get absolutely white girl wasted on Bourbon Street. Give New Orleans every dollar you got. Fly back to Philly and enjoy your cheesesteaks. Happy for you. Congrats on the win. Doesn't bother me at all. Take over the French Quarter. Have a great time. That's what it's for. It's literally for that purpose. Doesn't bother me. Now, if Eagles fans want to have like a second line and say the Wards, or they want to go over to the bank, all right, we'll see what happens then. But they want to party in the French Quarter. Have fun. Party in the French Quarter. Have fun. Thank you for your tourism dollars. Louisiana needs every dollar we can get. Bring them on. David says, maybe we sadly need this loss at home to wake us up. I don't honestly feel like, look, not trying to call you out, David, but I do feel like as fans, we can, and for valid reason, we can get emotional after losses. You lost to a playoff team at home 15-12. Beginning of the season. Like, I want to remind y'all, and again, I'm not harping on individual people here. Love y'all. Y'all are amazing. It's not the first time we've had rough starts to seasons, and the rough start is, oh, you went 2-1, you lost to a playoff team, right? Even going back to the good old days, 2019. Remember when the Rams absolutely murked us in week 2? We went 13-3 that year. Now, I'm not saying this is that team. I'm just saying don't let one game at the beginning of the season wreck you too much. Because remember, we scored 30, then scored 33, right? but that was a big one. I mean, even other years, 2020 was still a good season. You start off 1-2, finish 12-4, start off 1-2. As long as you figure things out here in the second half of things, that's what you want. You want to make sure you're good to go in the second half of the season. You want to dominate November and December, right? I'll take a close playoff caliber loss in week 3, and it's not going to ruffle my feathers. Now, had the Philadelphia Eagles come in and beat us 47-10, I would be feeling very much a type of way. Very, very much a type of way. But between the Eric McCoy loss, which is incredibly big because he's been playing at a Pro Bowl level, and that connection between Carr and his center is very important. That guy literally runs the offensive line. And then Clint Kubiak not having his best game, you lose by 3. Happens. On to Falcons hate week. Look, appreciate every single one of y'all. We're not going to keep it up too much longer. But film study for this week, y'all need to let me know what you want to see. What y'all want to see for the film studies. Appreciate all those who are supporting the channel. I can't do any of this without y'all's help. And I just want to say thank you sincerely. We have people who've been donating to help make the film studies happen, supporting the channel, liking the videos, etc. Means a lot. Thank you for that. Without that, I can't do it. So I just want to say a tremendous thank you to those. And also, if you have something that you want to see film study-wise, need to let me know. Whether it's through Twitter, through our Discord, etc. Make it happen. Let's see. 992 says we lost because the inside of the line isn't great with the up-the-middle matchups. McCoy covers all up a lot. He does, and it should be worth noting that it's not like Philly isn't exactly known for having a defensive line. Philly has got dogs on the defensive line, right? Again, not making excuses for why you lose, but it's not like you were getting beat by nobodies. Philly has a dominant defensive line. We've talked about Philly being arguably the best defensive line in football for years. They added Zach Ball as an outside guy, but they still have Milton Williams. They still have Jalen Carter. I mean, this is a team that's got quality players in that front seven. You know, are they what they were 4 years ago? I mean, I think they're bringing up a new crop of guys, right? But I still feel like they're a good team that is still trying to figure it out under Vic Fangio. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. Rewind the time says Philly is a top contender. We lost by 3. My hope is that the New Orleans Saints will be good as well, just as it is for yours. We need to look at why the run game didn't work, especially with the tight end running. Well, we can absolutely do that for the film study. I would be more than happy to break down the running game. I really enjoy that. Obviously, you did not get a lot from the passing attack or the tight ends in this game. Foster Moreau got 1 catch for 2 yards. That's it. You know, Jawan Johnson, nothing burger, right? Taysom Hill obviously didn't play this game. T-Rex is, why did Dennis not challenge the Shaheed during the first quarter? The O-line and wide receivers got a block better. Penning penalty was dirty, and we were predictable with Kamara's plays. Again, lots of layers, so I want to answer all of them all I can. As far as Dennis Allen not challenging, I agree he should have challenged, but he didn't. But I do think that he should have challenged there in that first quarter. As far as the O-line and wide receiver play got a block better, sure. I do want to bring up that this was a playoff level game for me. Both teams are good, right? This wasn't the Carolina Panthers bringing out Bryce Young as a nickelback and you get beat by Bryce Young. I'm just throwing out his name for the sake of it, right? Good team. Tough place, right? Now, as far as the Penning thing, Trevor Penning is what he is. Look, I'm not saying I agree with him getting the penalty call because obviously I don't want him to get called the penalty. I don't want him to do unnecessary roughness. But Trevor Penning is what he is. Trevor Penning, I say this as a football player because I'm not trying to speak ill of him as a person. As a football player, he is a meathead. He is a hog molly. He's a guy you get out there who literally wants to physically assault people. And that mentality is something that we have liked the first 2 weeks of the season when this team has played well. You can't tell a man to not be a dog after you praised him for being a dog. Now, I'm not saying he's a horrible person in real life. He's trying to injure people. I don't want him to get those penalties. Yes, I want him to play smarter, but I also don't think it was dirty. I think that was a competitive player who playing to the whistle, and there was no whistle. Should he have done it? No. Am I personally going to chide him that much for it? No. I'm not, but that's me. That's me. Edwin says Spencer Rattler time? Definitely not. But the agenda lives on. Shout out to my friend Ryan. The agenda lives on. All right. Brandon says maybe we needed a game like that to bring us back down to earth a little bit. Who knows? As long as we beat the crap out the Falcons in week 4, do we even remember this close loss? We'll see. We'll see as the season progresses. I'm excited to do the film study with y'all. And if y'all haven't already, the best way to contact me is either on Discord or Facebook. If y'all want to join the Discord and haven't, I'm going to throw a link here in the chat box real quick. It is just a free place for y'all to come together and chat. We're usually doing it from the phones. And yeah, Derek says Carr got exposed. I don't know how Carr got exposed. Derek Carr is what Derek Carr is. That's why we put out so much film on him. I don't see any explosion happening. Derek Carr just is Derek Carr. I think some people put up way too high expectations. I think that's a wild of a reach. Did Derek Carr throw an interception that he shouldn't have thrown? Absolutely. At the same time, I don't expect Derek Carr to be Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady, none of those guys. So, all perspective. Brad says Chauncey Gardner-Johnson was heard talking trash in the locker room about Derek Carr. Chauncey talks trash about everybody. Was he talking trash about how Olave spun that man like a freaking dreidel? And Chris Olave catching corner TD passes while Chauncey is 7 yards away trailing? That's just what Chauncey does. And when he was here and he was kicking the Atlanta Falcons logo and he was in Tom Brady's face, we loved him. But he is what he is. He is a above average player with a Hall of Fame level mouth. That's what he is. Let him talk his trash. His team won. Talk your trash. It's like I'm not going to get mad at Jalen Carter jawing with Tyrann Mathieu at the end of the game either. Talk your trash. You earned it. But that doesn't mean that he's good. Who dat? Love us. Appreciate every single one of you. Thank you so much. Let me know what film studies you want to see this week. Make sure you share out the podcast with other Who Dats. Tough loss. Going to bounce back. I don't feel like in previous years where it's all over. I feel like we still got it. Also, if I have to be superstitious about one thing, Saints fans, did we not kind of feel this was going to happen when the entire national media said that we were going to win and every panelist chose the Saints? I just feel like that even happened when Drew Brees was here. Call me superstitious. Call me stitious of super. But I hate when that happens. Stop it. Stop it. Quit picking the Saints to win. At least one of y'all needs to pick the Eagles next time. Who dat? God bless. Appreciate every single one of you. Love you. Deuces. That's me. Catch you on the film studies this week, and we're out.